Hello, so this video is again for one of my clients. This is your astrological birth chart breakdown. I have sent you a copy of your birth chart, and then also I think it's 11 pages of research based on your astrological birth chart. And for anyone who is interested in astrology, this is an example of my analysis of a client's birth chart. So we're gonna go ahead and start with your ascendant sign. So again, there's 12 houses in astrology. Your ascendant sign is a sign that sits on your first house cusp, or the sign that was rising in the east at the time of your birth. So in your case, like my case, we're both Cancer ascendants here, so we're kind of sisters from another mister is the only way I could put it. So our house placements are very similar. The only things that would differ would be like the planetary placements. But anyway, going to your first house, or to kind of explain what the first house is, it represents your appearance, your personality, and your outlook on life and your approach on life. So as a Cancer ascendant, Cancer is originally ruled by the moon, so this would kind of indicate that your mother had a huge influence on your personality and throughout your life. And it also will affect your appearance. So typically Cancer ascendants are seen to have like a moon-shaped face or a round face. It's a complete contrast from like someone who happens to be like a Capricorn ascendant, which typically they tend to have like a more bony structured, but Cancer ascendants tend to have a round or somewhat plump face. You won't see them with like very rigid edges on their face. Most of the time they tend to have a round face. Also, what has been observed with some Cancer ascendants, if your ascendant sign is ruled by the moon, there happens to be somewhat of a tendency to be prone to depression, or to be prone to like highs and lows in terms of mood as well. So that is typically what's seen with Cancer ascendants, or people being influenced by the moon on their first house. In your case, you do have Venus in your first house. So typically if you have the influence of Venus, which happens to be essentially the planet of beauty and everything pleasant in life, you might have a very pleasant personality to you. And this would also indicate that relationships are very important to you. Sex is very important to you. So also this could influence your relationships in a way where it's like, maybe if there's no passion or attraction within a connection, you might be prone to like stay away from those type of connections. But that's essentially what influence Venus could potentially have. So again, I go more into depth on the report, so you're more than welcome to read the details, but I'm just going to skim through all your houses just to kind of give you a general breakdown regarding your birth chart. Venus in Cancer, so again, you tend to be a very loyal lover when you approach relationships. And also Venus in Cancers tend to have the qualities to make like an excellent wife or an excellent stay-at-home cook or homemaker, etc. right? So you have those natural qualities within you. Again, you have a very pleasant personality for the most part. At least maybe that's how generally people would end up perceiving you throughout life. Also keep in mind that Venus, who originally rules your 11th house on your astrological birth chart, so again the 11th house of wealth and assets, or accumulative wealth, like the big wealth that you end up attaining in life, and it's sitting in your first house. So this would kind of indicate that your fulfillment of wishes ends up coming true throughout life. So for instance, if you're kind of striving for material wealth or like a big house or something like that, you could see the fruition of those things throughout your life as well. So typically when your 11th house lord sits in your first house, especially that being Venus, this is typically, you know, a placement that maybe a lot of self-made millionaires have, or a lot of self-made people have. Typically the things that you attain in life are given to you based off your own hard work. Like no one's handing it to you. So like these are the people that build businesses and end up attaining like a decent life for themselves, etc. So moving on to your second house. So again, the second house deals with wealth again, so it also deals with family, education, and speech, and also kind of represents like your economic development as well. So you, in your case, you have Leo sitting on the cusp of the second house, so this would kind of indicate that you do come from a dignified family, because Leo is a dignified sign. It represents royalty. And so like typically people with a Leo second house placement, you tend to see them come from good families. You're not gonna see them coming from like a family of criminals, or like they're not gonna be Chapo's son, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna come from a decent family, or someone who doesn't come from like a dark or shady background, or like that comes from a family of addicts, so on and so forth, or someone who just comes from a decent family, essentially. You also come with like good morals or ethics within you. Again, this would kind of show like you are a decent person. You tend to not be corrupted by nature. And the sun in astrology also represents the father, so this could also indicate that maybe your father had a lot of influence in terms of your morale or your ethics. And this could also show how you communicate, so essentially this would kind of indicate that you do tend to communicate very eloquently, or you have a lot of authority when you speak, or people really listen to you, or like if you're in a boardroom with coworkers, if you speak, like people are really gonna like tune into what you're saying, and they might think like, oh wow, she has a point, right? Also, so it kind of indicates like your family's financial standing. So again, this would kind of indicate that you came from a family of good financial standing for the most part. Again, you could have been born into a very government associated family, like maybe you had a lot of family members who were involved in government positions, or again, a very creative or artistic family. So I'm gonna move on to your third house. So you have third house Virgo. So again, your relationship with your neighbors and siblings can be very calculated, so unless if you really deem it necessary to communicate like with your siblings, you'll communicate, but otherwise probably not. Also, like you tend to like really study people, so like if you don't really see them reciprocating the same energy or effort into connections or relationships, like you may just overall distance yourself from them, or you might choose to like deal with people based off how they make you feel emotionally. Okay? Also, having Virgo in the third house of communication, this might make you very analytical and somewhat of a perfectionist. And then also when you tend to communicate, or right before you end up communicating something, again, whether if this is like in the work sphere or whatever the case may be, like you might be very critical of yourself, or you might really revise something before you send an email, or you might really think regarding saying something before you actually say it. So that's what's typically observed with Virgo in the third house. Okay, so having Saturn in Virgo in your case would kind of indicate that, you know, your relationship with your siblings or neighbors or people around you could have at times been, you know, a little bit chaotic. There could have been rivalry among siblings, or like you might have grown up with a family where you would occasionally fight with one of your siblings or something like that. Also, this placement makes it difficult for someone to work in a team setting and will cause delay of success in their career until the age of 32. So maybe it wasn't around until that age until you actually started seeing progress in your career. Saturn from sitting in the third house also will aspect the fifth house of education and romance. So again, this would eventually restrict your education, or it could also delay your romantic life. Like maybe you do have to go through a lot of hardship in life in terms of romantic relationships, or again, this would be an indicator that you probably wouldn't marry until late, right? And it's usually advised for Cancer and Leo ascendants to marry late in their life, because otherwise it's usually observed like if you guys end up marrying prior to the age of 30, it usually might end in divorce. In your case, Saturn again rules your seventh house of Capricorn, and it's sitting in your third house. So the seventh house typically deals with marriage or spouse, so this would kind of indicate that you're gonna look for a partner. At least it's advised that you look for a partner who's on the same level as you, someone who could increase your intelligence, or someone who can be a great communicator as well. You're gonna have a lot of verbal and written communication with your spouse once you guys actually get together, and You might want a partner who elevates or enhances your communication or business skills, or again, that's probably also advised. Like, you actually do have a good placements in terms of relationships and stuff, or who you actually end up with more than likely. So if anything, your spouse would actually end up enhancing your business skills or end up improving your life in terms of business, or maybe they would actually really push you in terms of business or communication, or they would really support you or want to join efforts with you in terms of business and partnership. Okay, this isn't someone who's just going to be completely out for themselves. Like, this is someone who's actually going to like want to merge efforts or like kind of work as a team with you. So again, 7th house also represents business and contracts. So again, this indicates that you would have a lot of written communication with whomever you come across in business or in work. You tend to interact with people in business, or you may also interact with them over social media, writing, and announcements. And this is also a placement that would indicate that the use of your hands and writing would play a huge role in your business and work. And you'll see once you kind of read over the report, actually the topic of research, writing, communication come up like probably more than 10 times on your astrological birth chart or through the research of it. So I do feel like you, for the most part, are in the right field, and there's some other things that came up, but I'll get into them later. When Saturn again is sitting in your 3rd house, but it's also ruling your 7th house, it indicates that your spouse would originate from a very steady life. So perhaps they come from like a family of laborers or like farmers or something like that, or mechanics, someone who would actually do like laborious work for a living, right? When you actually meet your spouse, they would kind of teach you like, damn, like they might shift your idea of your perception of hard work, because like maybe they give you a perception that is completely different from your type of work, where yours might be more intellectual than anything. Maybe they come again from a background of like really putting in hard labor into things to make money or to make a living. Okay, so Lord Saturn is also ruling your 8th house of Aquarius, and again Saturn is sitting in your 3rd house. So this placement indicates that you would love to investigate or gather information and write about it. So that's already what you do for a living. You also may like to expose or tell secrets to your siblings or neighbors. So you might have a tendency to be a little bit of a gossiper in this case. You might like to discuss taboo subjects such as sex, death, sudden events, or occult things with people. And you might could potentially eventually write about the occult. You may have the ability to write extensively. This is also an excellent placement for someone to develop their own business, or this could also indicate that you're probably better off having your own business. You also have a Mercury-Saturn conjunction. Okay, so your conjunctions on your astrological birth chart, they're typically close to 10 degrees close to one another. And again, by conjunction, I'm talking about like 2 planets being close to one another. That's considered a conjunction, or being within the same house. So this conjunction, Mercury and Saturn, represents someone who has a serious way of communicating. This is also a good placement for anything that requires long periods of writing or communication. And this is also a great placement that makes someone like a really good manager as well. So moving on to your 4th house. So the 4th house deals with your home, happiness, your domestic life, family, mother, house, land matters, real estate, vehicles, and material possessions. So you have Libra sitting on this cusp. So again, the original ruler is Venus of Libra, which deals with beauty and all things pleasant. So perhaps you tend to have like a thing for decorating your home, or whereas some people have like a very messy, nasty home, like you are the complete opposite. You want to have it neat, you want to have it maybe luxurious, you want to decorate it, you want to make it Venusian, you want to make it beautiful essentially. So the downside of this placement might indicate that you have a struggle between keeping a work-home life balance, and you have Jupiter sitting in your 4th house. So again, Jupiter is an indicator of your spouse in astrology. So then this indicates that you're likely to meet your spouse in a homely setting, such as a home, restaurant, hotel, or you can even meet your husband through your mother. Jupiter also expands your home, therefore the home which you purchase can be large. And the 4th house, originally ruled by Cancer, which represents mother femininity, Jupiter rules your 9th house of pilgrimages. So this could kind of indicate during your Jupiter Mahadasha, you might actually take like foreign travels with women or motherly figures. And again, as I mentioned before, your Jupiter Mahadasha is going to start at the age of 40, which I think you hit it next year in 2023. So Jupiter gives conveniences of vehicles. Therefore, in your Jupiter Dasha or time period, starting at the age of 40, you may get like your desired vehicle, or that's where you start like purchasing the things that you want. Maybe you come across extra wealth or extra money. Jupiter does bring blessings. So from the 4th house, Jupiter will aspect your 8th house of sudden events, death, or the occult, in-laws, and joint assets of marriage. So you could get like, should you actually marry, you could actually get like sound savings through your family or your in-laws. You're also likely to get law-abiding or religious in-laws. In the occurrence of sudden events, you may be able to look at things with optimism, so you're not going to be like a huge Debbie Downer for too long when like bad things happen to you. Jupiter also will aspect your 10th house of career, so again, this could bring blessings into your career, and also could make you somewhat of a teacher to others in your career, professional work, especially during your Jupiter Mahadasha, which again starts at age 40. Jupiter's aspect onto the 12th house of spirituality and foreign lands can make you a very spiritual person, but not very religious. So again, this could also bless you with foreign travels during your Jupiter Mahadasha. You have a hidden talent for spirituality and wisdom with this placement. This placement can make you a good spiritual teacher, real estate agent, travels agent, since the 12th house also rules foreign lands. So that could be an indicator for tourism and stuff, or like travels agent. You can also make a home business with this placement, with Jupiter sitting in your fourth house of home and family, right? So Jupiter again is sitting in your 4th house, but it's also ruling the 6th house of Sagittarius. So this placement indicates that your mental peace comes from servicing others or in the midst of your daily routine. Maybe you really like to work, or whatever the case may be, but through your work process or through your daily routines, like that gives you some form of mental satisfaction or like emotional satisfaction. This could also indicate that you have a conflict. When you have a conflict at home, it's usually caused by other people. It's not necessarily you. So again, Jupiter represents a husband, so perhaps your husband has a tendency to start conflicts at home or something like that. Or Jupiter also represents teachers or gurus, so you might actually get into disputes or arguments with those who teach you in some type of way. Therefore, you must pick teachers who are honest, and you could also get into disputes regarding teachings, morals, spiritual beliefs in your home. So like, let's say hypothetically you end up meeting or marrying someone who's really Christian. Maybe your religious beliefs don't match up, and that could cause some form of conflict in your home front. So 6th house also represents debts, meaning that you can incur debt to land, real estate, or family or mother. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, so most of us usually throughout life will end up taking debt. I mean, it's almost certain that in today's modern society you're going to end up taking out debt, whether if it's like a mortgage, a car loan, etc. You might end up taking on debt like for a mother or something like that, or it could just be like maybe you take on debt because of real estate or land that you end up purchasing, or a huge home or something like that. So this placement also indicates illnesses related to lungs or the chest area, since the 6th house does deal with diseases and whatnot. So Lord Jupiter, who rules your 9th house, is sitting again in your 4th house. This indicates that your mother was very spiritual or philosophical in nature. She would have been very law-abiding, so again, she wasn't necessarily like an ethical and moral type of person. You may have traveled a lot with your mother growing up, or again, you might eventually end up traveling again with female figures during your Jupiter Mahadasha, okay? Since the 4th house is 8 places from the 9th, it indicates that your mother foreign travels would have a great impact on you, so you would actually probably benefit somehow from foreign travel. So like maybe foreign travel is encouraged for you. You will have a lot of transformation in your life through spiritual teachers or gurus. I think like you're already kind of experiencing that, because you're already in your spiritual phase of the Jupiter Mahadasha, or you're approaching it by the age of 40, right? And you already kind of mentioned like, oh, your remedies help, so on and so forth. So getting spiritual would allow you to have great transformation in your life as well. Just be sure to like pick the right spiritual teachers or gurus, so on and so forth. You also have Mars in the 4th house, so this placement could bring stress in your home life or ill health towards your mother. Mars aspects your 4th, 7th, and 8th from itself. So this is considered like a Mangalic placement, aggravating your 7th house of partnerships or spouse, and you might tend to get like a spouse eventually who might tend to challenge you or might have like a fiery masculine personality to them. Mars aspects your 10th house. This indicates that you may find a career that gives you steady income in administrative or government positions, or it is possible that you may work off commissions or bonuses in your career. So I'm not sure if you get bonuses, like maybe through your new side business or side hustle that you started recently. Mars also aspects your 11th house of gains. So Mars can give you a lot of gains through things related to Mars, such as real estate, land, or vehicles. So those are like other avenues to maybe consider later on, because you could potentially end up obtaining wealth through that or making a business out of that. It could be like real estate, land, or vehicles. Or let's say you purchase a house when the market is down, and then when the market is up you end up selling it and you end up actually profiting off of that, right? Okay, so Lord Mars, who rules your 5th house of Scorpio, which is dealing with romance and whatnot, is sitting in your 4th house. So there could be power struggles with your mother growing up. Again, Mars represents aggression and the 4th house represents mother. This placement indicates that you may be strict with your children, which again, 5th house represents children. At home, you may play games with your children because Mars represents competitiveness, or you try to keep them active. So this could also show speculative business, again, in design or real estate. Mars-Jupiter conjunction. So again, you might come off as very assertive at home, on the home front, and you could possibly inherit property later on, or you might attain like most of your desires through your own work or effort. Okay, moving on to the 5th house of dating, romance, fun, the arts, etc. Have Scorpio sitting in there. So Scorpio is a very intense sign, so when it comes to relationships and whatnot, you might tend to be somewhat like a jealous or possessive lover, or like you might have that tendency in relationships, or you just might be very intense or passionate in relationships. So when you love wholeheartedly, and you have a tendency to feel like very intense emotions when it pertains to relationships. So again, the 5th house also rules progeny, education, and children. You may have a tendency to be protective over your children or be very involved with your children and their education. Mars, a planet of war, rules your 5th house, so therefore you won't be shy in terms of confrontation with others when it regards your children or romantic relationships. Like if in a way you feel like they're threatened in any way, guess who's ready to fight? Okay, so Scorpio represents what lies beneath the surface. Therefore, again, having Scorpio on the 5th house so makes professions and research to be ideal, as you take it upon yourself to search for information, or again, like you have a very investigative type of mind. 5th house represents all things related to fun, arts, and creativity. So you may find all things associated to Scorpio to be enjoyable, or something that you take pleasure in, such as the occult, mysticism, sex, things associated to mystery. Maybe you like watching crime documentaries or something like that. Okay, so 6th house is being ruled by Sagittarius. So again, Sagittarius happens to be a very spiritual sign. So again, with Sagittarius in the 6th house, again, Sagittarius is originally ruled by Jupiter. So Jupiter acts as a benefic. So you have benefic energy in the 6th house of enemy and diseases. And this would kind of indicate that like you tend to not have too many enemies in your life. So again, in contrast to like you comparing you to, let's say, El Chapo again, he probably had like a million enemies in comparison to you. So again, he it's quite contrast, okay? But in your case, you tend to not have many enemies. Again, your daily activities might tend to be very spiritual by nature. Like maybe you like to light incense from time to time, or maybe you like to do a spell from time to time, or maybe you like to open apps to read your daily horoscope, or you get regular consultations with tarot readers or something like that, or you like to go to church often, or you like to do prayer or something like that. So again, your daily routines would be very spiritual by nature. You have Moon, which is the mind or your emotions, in the 6th house. So again, you love dealing with competitive environments. No matter how large your debt is, you're very strategic in how you pay off your debt. So again, 6th house deals with enemies and debt. So that's why we're talking about competitive environments. So like your mind is made to like deal with competition in the work front, and you are very strategic, or you just have the know-how of how to do things, or like how to solve problems or conflicts, and you just have the know-how how to do that. You might get very interested in strategic management or counseling. You also have a talent for being able to motivate people on your daily routines. You love doing research. Again, so research came up a lot on the research on your astrological birth chart. Your family is likely to get into heavy debts in life, as well as moon represents family or the 6th house, and you need to constantly have change in your routine, or you may become also a regular vacationer. You may have enemies within your professional network circles or amongst your siblings, and your siblings were likely your enemies in past lives. You will also hate doing manual or physical labor with this placement. And this placement also may cause you to find mentors in your life that cause your luck to rise. Also, with the help of mentors, you're able to pay off your debts. Okay, so if you have debts, I would suggest like maybe getting like a financial advisor. Spiritual advisors would probably be good to you. You have the Lord Moon, which is ruling your 1st house of Cancer, sitting in your 6th house. So this would indicate that you tend to be very compassionate by nature, even towards your enemies sometimes. You may also be able to pick up emotions of animals. 6th house rules small animals, so that's why we're talking about that. You might be nurturing towards animals or pets. Since Cancer is ruled by the moon, which also symbolizes mother, you may have difficulty understanding your mother at times, or perhaps she could have been hard on you. In your work environment, you might come off as nurturing to others with this placement, and this could also indicate like a home business as well. And again, you're very good at counseling people or advising people as well. Okay, so we're gonna move on to Ketu in the 6th house. So essentially you are here, you've been incarnated into this life to improve yourself, and you love serving people. And if you, it kind of seems like maybe you like to help people, but without any agenda, right? Or like if you help people, it's out of the goodness of your heart. This placement also makes you a diligent worker. And K2 also represents mysterious things. So like in the 6th house of diseases, you at times could become sick, and then people may not know what's wrong with you, or you might have like mysterious diseases later on. Or again, like you might, this happened to me recently where it's like I went to a doctor and they couldn't tell me what was wrong with me, but you might have mysterious things going on with your chest area, breast, or the womb, since again Cancer rules these body parts. So K2 moon conjunction, again they're about 10 degrees in proximity to one another. This tends to create great researchers. Again, you have this placement in the 6th house that represents your daily routines or work environment, so this can be an indicator of your profession. And moving on to the 7th house, so it's being ruled by Capricorn on your chart. So the moon's ruler of Cancer, influencing your 1st house, which directly aspects or looks towards your 7th house of spouse or partnerships, which is being ruled by Capricorn or Saturn, may cause you to feel confused all the time regarding partnerships or other people. So maybe you find a lot of instability in terms of romantic relationships early on in life. Saturn's rulership over this house brings you karmic experiences through romantic partners. You may feel a sense of insecurity or fear in romantic relationships, or a need to not fully drop your guard with romantic partners. Moon is emotional, Saturn is very non-emotional, so this creates a challenge for Cancer ascendants. Okay, so Cancer ascendants struggle in terms of romantic relationships and partnerships because they're kind of afraid of getting hurt. So it's recommended again that Cancer ascendants marry late, so that way you get a mature partner. Okay, when you have Capricorn placed in this house, marriage is often delayed for the natives with this placement. Usually divorce occurs again if you go on to early marriage, like in your 20s. You also may choose a spouse more out of a sense of security rather than like if they have all the looks or if they have all the money. Looking for emotional security in this case. Okay, I mean, it could be financial as well, but like you might make a couple compromises in order to attain a partner who makes you feel safe or secure. You tend to attract partners who are cold by nature. Again, Capricorn is a cold sign, so you might get someone who is not very like emotionally available, or someone who works a lot, or someone who isn't very expressive emotionally. Like you might tend to be a little bit more expressive or emotional than they are. They could also be very disciplined regarding their schedule. You tend to attract partners who are more mature or older than you in age. Moving on to the 8th house, which is also the house of reincarnation or death, longevity, your life longevity, in-laws, or sudden events such as like winning the lottery, sudden death of a family member, so on and so forth. That's typically what the 8th house rules in astrology. You have Aquarius here, so it's actually a good placement because Saturn's influencing your 8th house, which tends to prolong death for you. So you tend to have a long life. If you have an illness or disease, like the impact of that is delayed. You might tend to have like chronic diseases throughout life, things that kind of make you sick for long periods of time, but it's not something that's heavily onset quickly, or like you're not the type to like get cancer and die within a year or something like that. So again, for the most part, life seems to be steady. You're not the type to go from rags to riches. You're not the type to bet all your life savings at the casino or anything like that. And regarding joint assets with partners, because that's what the 8th house rules, you may have a tendency to receive assets through partnership or through termination of partnership. So like, let's say you get married and get divorced, you might receive money from that. Hopefully that won't happen, because that's what we're trying to avoid here. But I have seen divorce on people's charts, but on yours it's not so much that. Okay, so if anything, you'll probably just end up marrying late. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the 9th house. So you have Pisces ruling your 9th house. So again, 9th house deals with ethics, higher learning, values, spirituality. Pisces in there. So again, Pisces originally rules the 12th house of spirituality and foreign lands. So this can cause you to travel frequently, and you might go on a lot of distant foreign travels during your Jupiter Mahadasha, again because Jupiter rules the sign of Pisces as well. It rules Sagittarius and it rules Pisces. So you might end up traveling to foreign lands throughout your lifetime, especially during your Jupiter Mahadasha or time period, which in your case starts from 2023, about the age of 40, and ends approximately at the age of 56. Foreign travels might occur frequently during this time. You might be inclined to pursue higher education, or you might be very spiritual, and your spiritual beliefs can also change throughout this time. So you have Aries on your 10th house cusp. So again, Aries is ruled by the planet of Mars, and that is typically indicative of aggression, competitiveness. So typically Aries cusp people on the 10th house tend to be known to be like really good in their profession, and they tend to get like a big reputation for being like a go-getter, or being the person to go to, or you're known very much well for what it is that you do, and you could also be very competitive. But typically 10th house Aries, I think they have a tendency to get promoted. I have this placement, so I usually get promoted in jobs, but it's not someone who would probably end up staying stagnant in the same position for like 20 years or something like that. Okay, moving on to your 11th house of gains, money, friendships. So all these things are very important to you. You have Taurus sitting on your 11th house cusp. This might cause you to gain quite a bit of assets in your lifetime. Your network circles might have a lot of more females than males. So I'll give you an example. So my network circles are mostly like 96% female. Again, I have the same placement as you. So my network circles, again, most of my customers are women. So you could also make gains through women. So again, I make majority of my money through women. And again, same for you. So you could be selling products or services to female audience mostly. And you might, like, let's say you're doing your side business or side hustles, you might want to choose something to promote towards women, or you might make women as your main audience, or you might want to keep that in mind in terms of marketing as well. With this placement, you might have a tendency to have close friends, like you prefer quality over quantity. So you could have like a handful of good friends, but you're not the type to like you know, be all buddy-buddy with 100 people. Friendships may be the type to last several years or a lifetime. Moving on to your 12th house, you have Gemini sitting in there. So Gemini is another analytical, intellectual sign ruled by Mercury, which causes you to evaluate your expenditures very cautiously. So again, as I mentioned, you're not the type to like squander your money most of the time. You tend to be cautious most of the time in terms of your expenses. So 12th house also represents loss of energy. So Gemini is again an intellectual sign, so a lot of your energy, mental energy, is lost here, or you expend most of your mental energy towards things associated to Mercury, such as research, writing, and communicating. You have Rahu in here, which is a placement that could cause you to be in contact all the time with foreign places or foreign lands. So when we talk about foreign places or foreign lands, it could just mean essentially like people outside of your city, because back then they referred to foreign lands as like, you have to think about when these Vedic texts or these ancient texts were written. So like people probably lived in small villages and stuff, or like if you moved to the next state next to you, that was considered like foreign land or something. So what this could kind of indicate is that you tend to come in contact with people, I want to say like through social media, through the internet, because they're in foreign lands. Like they could be in New York and you could be in Texas, right? And also this could indicate that you tend to love foreign travel and spirituality. So this is a placement that kind of indicates some form of weird supernatural ability that you may have. Could be like psychic abilities, but typically when I've seen Rahu in the 8th house or the 12th house, which deals more with weird supernatural things such as death, I think these people tend to have more mediumship abilities, or they tend to either be prone to seeing spirits, seeing shadows. Could also be indicative of like discerning whether something is actually psychosis or if they're actually seeing spirits and stuff, which I think there's probably not much of a difference between the two, but you might have a tendency to like see weird things or to get a sense for weird things, because the 12th house again deals with the spiritual realm. And with Rahu in the 12th house of Gemini, you may become obsessed or like very involved with communicating, writing, networking, again with people, foreign lands, or spiritual people. You would be very independent with your own family as well. This could also indicate permanent foreign settlement. So again, whether if you choose to retire in Costa Rica or something like that, that could be an indicator of that. Or if you choose to leave your homeland, meaning like you were born in Kansas and you ended up moving to Texas, that would probably be the reason why, because you might have like Rahu in the 12th house. Rahu also aspects your 6th house, which could act as a damaging effect onto the 6th house of enemies. So people with this placement need to be careful not to act out irrationally, at times risking landing themselves into jail, because Rahu can aggravate your mood or psyche into episodes of abrupt anger. And Rahu's aspect onto the 8th house of secrets, the occult, or hidden knowledge may also make you obsessive towards attaining knowledge pertaining to the occult, and you may develop an interest toward astrology with this placement as well, and this aspect can also cause you to go through major life transformations. Also, again, you might be born with natural spiritual gifts, so unless if you practice it, you probably won't be able to confirm, but you might have intuitive psychic abilities. But again, if you were interested in that, I would suggest like trying to use your gifts or trying to test your gifts to kind of strengthen them, or at least confirm whether if there's something there or not. But there's a possibility you actually might have, I guess, the ability to do something similar to me, but I feel like research is more like the thing that you would probably earn money from in this lifetime. But that's what I have for you. Okay, so pretty much that sums up your birth chart, again, I would recommend that you read through the report that I sent you because that goes more into depth. I didn't cover everything on this video, but overall the topic of research, writing, and communication play heavily onto your astrological birth chart, so I do feel like you are in the right field. There's also maybe prospects for starting a home business. I'm assuming your tourism business or travel agent business, I'm assuming you run that through home, and then maybe that's how you communicate to people of foreign lands. It could also be gains for you through real estate, land, or through starting your own business. And overall, you have a good chart. This isn't necessarily a bad chart. Like, maybe the more challenging aspects would probably just be relationships and maybe watching your health, but overall it's a good chart. I've seen more complicated charts. So yeah, hopefully you like this research that I did on your astrological birth chart. And again, for anyone who would like to schedule a consultation, make sure you guys contact me by visiting my website, mariasbotanica.com. You can find my contact information on there. Okay, so yeah, thank you guys for watching.